Jay Simran, everyone. I hope everyone had a good afternoon break. So, before we actually get started on our session today, we actually have a guest speaker, Chintal Patel. He is a successful real estate agent, entrepreneur, and has a successful podcast with his brother Krishna Patel called Awesome Bros Podcast, and they are two successful business partners that are based in New Jersey. And I hope everyone is interested in their story and have a good time listening. Okay, take it away, Chinto.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to meet you all. Can you guys hear me properly? Yes? Okay, cool. So, as Raj explained, my name is Chinto. My brother's name is Krishna. He couldn't make it here today, but I'm here for you guys. So, today I want to talk to you about two things. I want to talk to you about family, and I want to talk to you about community service, right? And why those two things are fundamental for us, and why they should be important for you as well. Now, just to give you guys a little background story on me and my brother Krishna and how we got started in business, and that's what our lives are about today. We come from very humble beginnings. We both were born in Pennsylvania, and our parents are from India. So we're first generation Indian Americans. And in Pennsylvania, my dad had a business, right? And for the first couple of years, the business was going really well, and we were doing really well. Unexpectedly, though, the business started to go bad. And what ended up happening when I was about 6 years old and my brother was about 4 years old, we lost the business. My dad had to file for bankruptcy, and a couple years down the road, we almost lost our house. So I was about 10 years old. My brother was about 2 years old. I mean, I'm sorry, 8 years old. He was 2 years younger than me. And at that point, we were almost homeless. So we grew up from very, very humble beginnings. We had a lot of difficulties and struggles. And those things are what shape us to be who we are today. And we're very proud of those moments because those moments allow us to excel in business, to take care of our families today, to give back to the community. We understand the importance of being successful, of creating an environment where you're able to give back to your community and things like that. So that's where we got started. Fortunately enough for us, my dad started another business shortly after, and we were able to scale that business and become successful. Now, me and my brother, we both went to university. We graduated. My brother's in law school now. I am a real estate entrepreneur. I buy and sell property. So we're fortunate today to have a great life. And we created the Awesome Bros podcast, which is what you see right here, to give back, to teach other people the lessons that we've learned in business, the challenges that we've gone through, and all of those things, so they can better their own lives, right? And that's the whole purpose of it. It's a nonprofit. We do it only to give back and to create awareness for leading a successful life. And now the four things that we focus on in the podcast are health, wealth, love, and happiness, right? And those are the four pillars to achieve a good life, in our opinion, right? And today I want to talk to you guys, like I said, about community service and family, right? So we actually, in the course of the last few months, we were able to raise some money for India because India was in a very, very bad situation with COVID. So we recognized that, we noticed it, and we said, how can we do something to give back, right? And immediately what went into our heads was, we can create awareness for this issue that's happening and do something about it. We can donate. I don't know if you guys know, but the stats were ridiculous. 118 people in India were dying every 60 seconds. So it was very, very terrible. And that is the homeland. So we were thinking, in our power, what can we do to give back? So what we did was we raised awareness through the podcast, through social media. We leveraged Instagram. We created a post, and we said, for every share of this post, we will donate $5. So that post got shared thousands of times. And with that awareness, we were able to donate $6,000 over to India to help with the COVID crisis, right? And I tell you that story because there's one thing to be successful in business, but there's another thing that is to be a successful person, right? And in my opinion, being a successful person encompasses and involves you being able to give back to your community, to be able to take care of your community. So how can you guys take advantage of that? How can you learn why it's so important to give back to community, right? Now, I'm sure many of you have faced similar struggles with being first generation Indian Americans. I mean, probably seen your parents to this day work their whole day, right, to try to provide for you, right? And oftentimes it's not the best jobs because they immigrated to the US, right? And you see that day in and day out, and that teaches you the hard work, that teaches you the value of money, right? And you understand all of those lessons. Now, it's in our opinion that when our parents are sacrificing this much for us, when people around us are sacrificing this much for us, it is our responsibility now to provide them a life where they can earn the fruits of their labor, right? And you do that through building a strong community, right? And how do you build a strong community? Well, there's three things that involve building a strong community. The first thing is influence, right? What kind of person are you? What are your principles? What are your morals? What do you stand for? Those kind of things are going to shape you as a person. And you exuding that influence outward, right? To your friends, to your peers, you keeping those principles every day, right? Whether it's simple things like making sure you're disciplined, right? Making sure you do what you say you're going to do, right? Those simple things can shape who you are, right? And as you stack those habits, right, as you stack those principles and habits, you influence yourself and then the people around you, right? And that's one aspect of building a community. Now, the second aspect that goes on top of that is team building, right? Now, when we build businesses, the biggest thing that you have to look out for is building a team around you. That's very, very important. In every area of your life, you need a team, right? And family is one kind of team, right? Everyone in your family, I'm sure, has certain things that they do to keep the household running, to keep, things in order. You guys work together. And that same rule applies for community, right? So how do you build a team, right? The first thing you have to do to build a team is have high values and principles as an individual, right? When you bring those things to the table, what you're doing is you're creating an environment where you bring the best, highest quality values and you encourage other people, your friends, your peers, people in your family to uphold those values. And what kind of values, are we talking about? Honesty, right? Integrity, right? All of these things that sometimes may be hard to do, but very, very, very important to do, right? So that's the second thing. And lastly, the third thing is having an objective, having a goal, having a vision for where you want to go, right? With your team, with your community, with your family, there's always an objective. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to give back to something? Are you trying to donate to a charity? Are you trying to build a house where everyone in the house is happy and healthy? For a business, are you trying to build a profitable business? Right. So those are things that we have to consider when we talk about community. Right. And the second thing I want to share with you guys is really about family. Right. Now, as I mentioned to you before, I'm sure you guys have parents that work their whole days just to provide for you guys. And the reason why that's so important for us, especially as being first generation, is because a lot of times we might ignore or neglect all of the hard work and sacrifice that they're doing so that we can live better lives, so that we can get educated, so that we can become successful, right? And essentially we're only, as first generation Indian Americans, able to become successful because our parents made some of the hardest choices that they could make, right? And those hard choices involve moving across the world, starting a new life where they didn't know English, right? They had trouble navigating all of those things, and we're able to step on their shoulders and build more because of that, right? And what we want to do is we want to give back to them for doing so, right? And the way we give back, again, is by building a community, right? Being successful in whatever area that you decide to be successful in, and giving back. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is charity, right? And why that's so important. So charity, it comes in many forms, right? Whether it is in giving back and educating someone, that's a form of charity. Whether it's monetary by donating, right, or raising awareness, right, that's a form of charity. And that giving back is so important. That's why we believe in it at with the podcast, with Awesome Bros podcast. We believe in giving back because that is our highest moral good that we can do, to give back, right? To create a world where we're in the position, we have the strength that we're successful in business, we make money, and we can donate that money, or we have influence, right? We build a great community around us, and those people can help us create awareness for a certain objective or a certain goal, right? So those are really the three important things about building a community and having that mindset.
Thank you so much, Jinto. Those were amazing words, and I think that was such good advice, especially for our generation, because we do struggle with the line and to understand like what our parents did versus what we should do. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. We do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule and joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So uh, last session we left off on Tan Seva. So let's go on and continue with Man Seva, because that is the second type of Seva. Okay. Okay. So Sahalbi, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, sure. So again, thank you, Jinto, for your kind and wise words. I know I'll definitely be checking out your Awesome Bros podcast later. So anyways, so before we start Manseva, we will let's go into breakout rooms, kind of like we did with Tanseva, and discuss how Manseva can be applied in family, satsang, and community. Welcome back, everybody. I'm sure you guys had some very good examples. So let's go to Dhruv's team. Could your speaker please unmute and list the ideas that they had for Manseva?
Yeah, I'll call upon Haley. I think she had a couple of ideas that were really nice that I would like to share to the group.
Sure. So the couple of ideas that we just basically not think bad of someone, and even from a community perspective. The other couple of things that we brought forward was, Dasatva, and then also Divya Bhavakpo. So those were the 3 points that came forward. And then in addition to that, we talked about Mansi Puja Prakarye. That is also from a spiritual perspective, Mani Seva.
Yes, those are very good examples. Thank you. So next, could we have Dia's group? Could you please unmute your spokesperson and list your guys' ideas?
So I'll be speaking for my group. So a couple of examples we came up with is like in family, when you practice self-respect and respect others, that's a sort of seva because you're helping yourself and you're helping other people. And then for satsang, we did, whenever you do Mantipuja, you're practicing like you're continuing to strengthen your relationship between yourself and Maharaj. And then for a community, when you pray for other people in times of need, that's like a good seva that you can do.
Okay, yeah, those are some very good examples. Thank you, Dia. So next we'll have Vraj's team. Could you please unmute your speaker?
So my speaker was Shriji. And she was
So a few points that we came up with is telling people about the sampradaya, connecting with Bhagwan through like your mind, and doing seva by cleaning mandir, serving Hari Bhaktos food.
Oh yeah, those are very good examples. Again, thank you, Shriji. So let's have Hima's group. Could you please unmute your spokesperson?
Yeah, so for community, we had following the community rules, like wearing your mask, not stealing, and not littering. For we should be being part of Sabha and thinking about God while we're doing darshan and not about other things.
Okay, yeah, those are some very good examples. Thank you, Nishka. And last but not least, my team, Jay, could you please unmute?
I wasn't letting them mute, my bad. For a family, we said listening to your parents and like listening to what they tell you to do, whether it's like picking up something or like cleaning up the house a little bit. For community, we said therapy, and then for satsang, we said Mantipuja because it strengthens your connection with you and Bhagwan.
Okay, so everyone had some very good examples. So now we will look at one big, one of the biggest and biggest ways you can do man seva, which is Mantipuja. Okay, so what is Mantipuja? So Mantipuja, since Maharaj's physical body is no longer on earth for us to do physical tan seva to him, we use the means of Mantipuja and other things such as dhyan to do his seva mentally. And although this may seem like a bit of a shortcut at first, through Mantipuja, if done correctly, us Hari Bhaktos can attain similar rewards of such seva as tan seva. So hypothetically, let's say that Maharaj came back to earth in a physical body, and you were massaging his feet. If in your Mantipuja you also were massaging, you were imagining yourself doing seva to Maharaj by massaging his feet, this would you would gain a similar reward and similar benefit to if you were doing it in person. So because the essence of the seva is the same. In one way, you were doing it in tan seva, but through Mantipuja, you are doing it as man seva. So it's the same thing, but just through different types of seva. To do Mantipuja correctly, however, you have to put all of your focus into Maharaj and his seva. So the only way to do Mantipuja correctly, to attain all of the rewards of Mantipuja, is to put all of your focus into Maharaj. And so you can't have, so say you are, again, massaging Maharaj's feet during your Mantipuja. And then you have a thought of your test tomorrow, which you are very worried about. That is not a good thing to have. And I know that's very hard to, especially like immediately, it's very hard to get rid of those other thoughts. But this satsang is a process, and this is something you work on over time. So the Mantipuja equates to nothing if the satsangi's mind wanders. So you always keep that in mind. And the reason, and one of the main purposes of doing Mantipuja is to build a friendly relationship with Maharaj in your Mantipuja. So The purpose of Mantipuja is to make a relationship with Maharaj, and this is done by this is done through many different things, which we will talk about later in the slides. So now we will go through the 5 different Mantipujas briefly, and we will discuss the things you should do in each one of them. So the first Mantipuja is performed early in the morning, typically around 5 to 7 a.m. And this is done in your puja before, like you do Mara, you do your Danvat, you read your Shikshapatri. Before all of that, you do your Mantipuja. This is typically done again at between 5 to 7 a.m. and before sunrise. And in this Mantipuja, essentially what you are doing is you're taking Maharaj through his daily morning routine. And this includes things like brushing teeth, taking a shower, having breakfast, doing the morning aarti, and doing Vagadaran, putting on Maharaj's clothes and things like that. So anything you do in your daily routine, you imagine yourself doing to Maharaj in your Mantipuja. So the second Mantipuja is performed at noon, and this is where you make Maharaj lunch and feed it to him. And this is while Maharaj is eating, you should be fanning him and doing Danvat Pranam. So if you've ever seen Dharmakul or other santos, when they're eating, the Haribhaktas around them are always doing Danvat to them, and this is a sign of respect. And so in our Mantipuja, when Maharaj is eating, we should also do this as well. And after Maharaj is done eating, you should take his heavy ornaments off so he is comfortable for his afternoon nap. And then you go to his Aksharordi, which is his bedroom, and you massage his feet, head, legs, and etc. until Maharaj falls asleep. And this is again performed around noon, 12 o'clock. So the third Mantipuja, this one is fairly short, but it is, keep in mind, even though it is short, it is still just as important as, say, the first or second Mantipuja. So this is performed around 3 to 4 p.m. And this is where you wake Maharaj up from his nap, and then you offer him water to wash his mouth. And after a few minutes, then you feed him a snack, and again, you try to make conversation with him while Maharaj is eating to form a friendship type bond with Maharaj, because that is the essence, and that is the main purpose of doing Mantipuja, trying to form a relationship and a strong bond with Maharaj. So the fourth Mantipuja is essentially Thad, where you make Maharaj his Thad and feed him his Thad, which is his dinner. And again, during this, you try to make conversation with Maharaj and create a friendship with him. So imagine your best friend is right next to you eating, and you're just sitting there. You're gonna talk to them. You're gonna make conversation with them. You're not just gonna sit there and like stare at them. So just like how you would talk to your best friend, you talk to Maharaj and create conversation with him so that friendship bond can form. And one of the biggest things to keep in mind while doing Mantipuja is that Mantipuja isn't a chore. It's not something that you do just to get over with. It is, you do it to create a closer friendship with Maharaj. And you can't do this if this friendship cannot be created if you just think of it as a chore and something that you just have to do and get done. So always keep that in mind, because that's very important. And if you think of it as a chore, again, like mentioned before, the Mantipuja equates to nothing because your mind is on something else. Your mind is on the next thing that you have to do. Say you are, I don't know, you have to eat. You have to go eat after doing your Mantipuja, and so your mind would be on the food rather than the Mantipuja itself. So that would equate to nothing. And the last thing you would do during this Mantipuja is perform Sandhya Aarti to Maharaj. So this is the evening Aarti that all of us do to Maharaj. You perform it in your mind to Maharaj himself as a physical body. And so the fifth and last Mantipuja of the day is performed around 9 p.m. and this is when you put Maharaj to sleep. So you would take Maharaj's heavy, delicate clothing and give him nightwear so that Maharaj can be comfortable throughout the night. And this is, so then after that, you would give him milk with almonds and water. So he has something to drink before he goes to bed. And then you would, again, take Maharaj to his Aksharordi, his bedroom, and put him to sleep by massaging his head, legs, fanning him in the summer when it's hot, and doing Dandavat Pranam to him until he goes to, his eyes closed and he goes to sleep. And this is also when you would say your border news and all of that.
Sahil Bhai took us through the 5 Mansi Pujas. So we're going to go over the importance of Mansi Puja. So especially for us, like not even like in modern time, but even like after Maharaj's physical body went back to Akshardham, because remember, like when Bhagwan was born, he was a human. He had 2 arms, 2 legs. He was just like us. He had all human characteristics. But Maharaj thought, like, I can't just be here forever. He has to go back. Like he has to leave his body. Otherwise, if Bhagwan was still around, he'd be 250 years old. Like that'd be like nuts, and that's kind of crazy. And so Bhagwan had to leave his body. So it's so important for us that Mansi Puja is a thing because we can do his seva without Maharaj actually being in front of us. And in the Satsangi Jivan, it says that one should massage Lord's feet with humility. One can do this mentally or simply touching the feet of his murti in the absence of God in person. So the Satsangi Jivan, even like if you read through the entire Satsangi Jivan, it will show you that there are these 2 options. Like if Maharaj is in person, you do this, but if he's not there, you can do this too. So like it gives you like, I wouldn't say variety, but like it gives you options in the sense that, so we have this backup plan, and by having this backup plan, it actually gives us the equivalent of if Maharaj was before us. And so Maharaj, before leaving his body, he made sure that his bhaktas had ways to do seva so they don't feel deprived. That's why Maharaj made our temples, our mandirs, so we have a place to go to do seva, to see Maharaj, to interact with other Hari Bhaktos, other Satsangis, and engage with our community. So same with our Santo, Acharya, and all of our 6 pillars. These are all connected in a way to do seva. And one special note that I found was in Garda Pratham 43, Bhagwan says an excerpt from the Bhagwad Gita. And in the English translation, because this is Sanskrit, the English translation is, if those who are fulfilled by serving me do not desire the 4 types of mukti, such as a place in my dham, which are attained by serving me, then why would they desire anything that is ultimately perishable? So what Maharaj is saying here is that if there are bhaktos of my Hari Bhaktos who are fulfilled by only serving me. So these people are only happy by serving Bhagwan, and they don't desire the 4 types of mukti. Like they don't even want to go to Akshardham. Like I said this previously in the morning too. Like these types of bhakto, they only want Maharaj's Rajipo. Their only goal in life and after this life is to make Bhagwan happy, regardless of where they go afterwards. And that is like a true mindset. That is like what you want to achieve in life. And so why? So Bhagwan is stating that if they don't even want to go to Akshardham, they only want my Rajipo. What makes them think that they want anything else, like anything perishable, which means like any of these worldly objects? Like they don't want anything except Maharaj's Rajipo. But and so as a satsangi, when we do seva, that is what we should achieve and try to attain. And obviously, this isn't like what Sahil Bhai and I are like telling you. It's not just gonna happen overnight. Like it is a work in progress. Like even personally for me, I'll give you an example myself. For me to start doing the 5 mansi pujas in a day, it took me like 3 years. And like sometimes you forget, like if you're at school, like time goes by, like and sometimes if you had like a long day, you forget to put Bhagwan to sleep. But like you have to step back and you can't look at these little things. You have to look at the bigger picture and think, you know what, it's okay. I have to keep moving forward because satsang isn't a journey and there is no destination. Because even after we die, we're still the only thing we want is Maharaj's Rajipo. So this is like a continuous journey that we're all working on together, and the best that we can do is just help each other out and kind of navigate it through with our to navigate through it together. And Bhagwan even continues in the same Vachanamrut and says another slok right under, and this is also from the Bhagwad Gita in Sanskrit, and the English translation is, even if granted a place in my dham with power similar to mine, my closeness, a swarup similar to mine, or oneness with me, Nishkam Bhaktos would not accept them without my seva. So Bhagwan really emphasizes that sorry. Bhagwan really emphasizes that these Nishkam Bhaktas, they don't really care what Bhagwan gives them. Bhagwan can give them the place in their dham, power similar to Bhagwan, like his closeness, even a swarup similar to Bhagwan. Like imagine Bhagwan giving you powers similar to himself or being one within him. These Bhaktos would not accept them without Bhagwan Seva. They only want to serve Bhagwan, and that I think is such a true, honest mindset. And kind of Bhagwan really concludes in this Vachanamrut and says that the Nishkam Bhakta of Bhagwan does not wish for the 4 types of mukti, and the 4 types of mukti are Kam, Arth, Moksha, and Dharma. Dharma, Arth, Kam, Moksha. Sorry, I said them in the wrong order. And even if the seva of Bhagwan is not included therein, so they want them with the seva. It's kind of like I know I keep saying this over and over again, but it really emphasizes that to attain, for us, we only want to serve Bhagwan, and that should be our only achievement in life, to achieve Maharaj's Rajipo. We want Maharaj's happiness in us, and we want him to shower us with his blessings. And Bhagwan insistently grants such a bhakta his divine powers and bliss, even though the Bhagwan does not wish for it. Like I said, if we have this mindset and we continue to do these actions, then Bhagwan will give us us blessings without even Bhagwan. Bhagwan won't even have to give them. We won't have to ask Bhagwan because Bhagwan will give that to us for us. So we're gonna wrap up Manseva and we're gonna actually continue on with. We're gonna go into these breakout rooms, and then after that we're gonna brainstorm. We're gonna come up with ideas, and then after we can reconvene, we're gonna take a step back, and we're gonna look at like Seva as like a whole, because like we went through Dan Seva and Man Seva, and Dan Seva we can't really do because we're like we're all teenagers, so like we don't really make an income, so it feels weird for us to do Dan Seva. So I feel like it's important to understand like the mahatva of Seva after taking a step back. So we'll take a look at that after we get into our breakout rooms and brainstorm Sastra and Kirtan references for Man Seva. Okay, we're gonna kind of reconvene. So let's go group by group and let's have everyone talk. So the group-based group, what did you guys come up with?
I'll ask Serena to tell us some of the examples that we come up with.
Just so everyone. So some things that we discussed in our group is that like for example, Tad and stuff like that. That's a one way that kind of refers to Man Seva, providing Tad to Bhagwan. Another thing we brought up is, in the Shikshapatra, there are some certain sloks that bring up helping elderly when you pass by them, if you pass by them when they're doing darshan. So those are some of the things that we highlighted, that you could do man seva through shastras and kirtan references.
Those are some really good ideas that we almost had like similar responses. Hima, what about your group?
So for our group, we said we could do arti, dun. We could also do kirtans and scriptures like that to do man seva.
Those are some really good ideas. Yeah. Well, what about Sahil's group?
Okay. For my group, Vedika will speak.
So one of the things that we discussed was like the gista that we say every day, Pratham Shri Harinada.
Yes, that is a really good example. Dave, you wanna take it away from our group?
All right. We discussed about Jesta, we discussed about Kirtans, when you do like Border Prabhu at night, waking them up and stuff like that.
Yes, you're on the yep. Am I missing any group? Okay. If I'm not missing anyone, then I will continue. Those were some really good ideas, by the way. Everyone did a really great job. And before we actually continue, I did have a quick like trivia question. So, who remembers how many Mantipujas there are in a day? Just raise up your hand, like 2, 7. Okay, good. Just yep, yeah. Yes, I see a lot of 5s. You are correct. There are 5 Mantipujas in a day. Good job. Oh, I just totally forgot. The yes group. Sorry, kind of missed over you. That's why I had a feeling that I missed someone. Would your group like to share what you guys found?
Kaushal, do you want to share?
So after Arti, the third part of Mantipuja, we would do mix of Urtam Ati, and every time we do darshan to Maharaj, we would memorize what he wore. We would recognize the features that he had, like dimples and birthmarks. Shikapati, he would mention, it would always mention serving God before yourself.
Yeah. Those are some really good ideas. You guys did a really great job. Sorry, I had a feeling I skipped over something. Okay, so let's continue. There are only a few more slides, so we're almost done, guys. Okay, so in Gadara Pratham 63, Bhagwans talks about the importance of the Hari Bhaktos in talks about the Hari Bhaktos in Akshardham. So Bhagwan says that it isn't with the Akshardham that Purushottam Bhagwan himself resides eternally. So Bhagwan states that in Akshardham, Purushottam Bhagwan, who is Swaminarayan Bhagwan, stays there eternally. Like that is his home, and that is where his home is. And by his Antaryami powers, he resides in Anvay Swarup in Akshardham, in the countless millions of Brahmans, and also the Ishwars of those Brahmans. So kind of the way I would explain it to you guys is that we live on Earth, and there are countless millions of these just like ours, with that it might be going through different phases of life right now. Like maybe the dinosaurs are on one, and then maybe there's like the Revolutionary War happening on another, and maybe in another one they're like 1,000 years ahead in the future that we are not there. So like in this way, there's one Akshardham, but Bhagwan is the creator of all of these different Brahmans. And all of these Brahmans fit on just one hair of his body, which comes to which you realize that how minute and small we are compared to Bhagwan himself. And so also in the Akshardham, there are countless millions of muktas who are acquired similar to those of Bhagwans who remain in Bhagwan Seva. So like I said earlier, remember, I don't want you to confuse it. They are not like Bhagwan. They have qualities similar to Bhagwan. And like I said in this morning as well, if we want to go to Akshardham, we need to also acquire these similar qualities of like Shraddha, Swadharma, happiness, honesty, penance, controlling your indriyas, etc. All these 16 spiritual qualities we need to have. And these bhaktos, their equivalent, their divine light is equivalent to that of millions in suns, and they radiate from each and every hair of those sevaks of Bhagwan. So I want you to understand, like, we see the sun every morning. Imagine how much stage and how much light it brings to us. Imagine millions and millions of those radiating from each and every hair of the sevaks in Akshardham. So if we compare, like, if these sevaks are so great, then how could we possibly even begin to talk about Bhagwan himself? Like, there's just no beginning and there's no end to how the strength and glory that Bhagwan has. That's something very important to understand. Like, that seva can take you a long way and gives you so much, like, happiness and tej in Akshardham. So we'll have Sahil Bhai talk about what to keep in mind when we are doing seva.
Thank you, Rajbhai. So going along with what Rajbhai was saying about broadening our view on seva. So now let's talk about what things you should keep in mind when doing seva. So there are two main things that you should always have in mind when you are doing any type of seva, whether it be tan, man, or dhan. And the first one of these is bhav, and bhav is sort of like passion / like compassion for Maharaj. So you should always have Maharaj in mind when you're doing seva. You should always have bhav of Maharaj, because without bhav, you lose your motivation. Without the passion that you have for Maharaj, you lose your motivation to do that seva, and that can lead to you stopping the seva as a whole. So as an example, I know some of you are in college and some of you are close to in college. And in college, you have to you pick a major that you want to focus on and study. And so let's say you picked one major and you're doing that for 1 or 2 years, but then you realize that you don't have the passion to pursue that major, and you don't have the passion to pursue a job in that field. So then when this happens, you lose all your motivation for doing the work for that major, and oftentimes you will switch your majors. So this is what happens when you don't have, this is, you can take this example and transfer it to when you're doing seva as well. When you don't have bhav or passion when you're doing seva, you lose your motivation, and that will, and ultimately the seva will be discarded in some way. And in the Bhagwad Gita, it says, whoever with loving decision offers unto me a leaf, a fruit, a flower, or water, I affectionately accept that devotional offering from that pure-hearted being. So here, Maharaj is talking about how no matter what the satsangi offers to Maharaj, whether it be something small like a leaf or a flower, if they are offering it from a pure heart, Maharaj will affectionately and unconditionally accept that offering. And this applies to actions as well, such as seva. So any seva that you do from a pure heart, whether that be the smallest things, just like picking up a piece of trash, or even the biggest thing, that's starting like a entire charity, any of these things, if you have a pure heart, Maharaj will affectionately and unconditionally accept that offering to him. So that's a very important thing to always keep in mind when doing seva, which is bhav. And so the second thing you should keep in mind when doing seva is the niyam. of that seva, that regarding that seva. So keep in mind the proper process of doing any seva, and that you are doing it ultimately, you're doing it for Maharaj. So as an example, let's say you go to Mandir and you are doing seva there by sweeping the Mandir floors. And if you're doing that, don't try and cut corners just to be finished faster. Don't try and say you know that there is this certain place at Mandir where not many people go. So you have this mindset that, oh, so since not many people go there, I don't have to clean it as well, or I don't have to clean it at all. If you have that type, don't have that type of mindset, and take the time to correctly sweep each and every part of the mandir and make sure that there are no parts that have that there are no spots that haven't been swept. And the reason for this is that if you're following the correct niyams of the seva and you are minding the proper process of it, that gives you the full benefits and fard of that seva. And this leads to, these benefits include punya, which is what leads us to akshardham. So this is very important. When you don't have the proper niyam or process, you may not get that full benefit or fard of doing that seva, and which could lead to not getting the full punya that you could have gotten if you just kept the niyams in mind and had the proper process.
Thank you, Sahobe, for teaching us what to keep in mind when doing seva. So now we're going to talk about moksha and the different aspects we need for moksha. I know we've mentioned a lot about Akshardham and like Bhagwans Home, and like, so it might be very confusing. So let me kind of detail explain it to you. So to attain moksha, a bhakta needs to serve Purushottam Narayan, which is also Bhagwan, Swaminarayan Bhagwan, with purity and honesty. Like Sahil was saying, our intention is to be pure and we need to do it properly in order to attain the flag. So with seva, because with the seva that we do, we need to have dharma, bhakti, jnana, and vairagya to overcome maya. And maya is the obstruction of kalyan. It is a darkness that basically is kind of like blocks us from kalyan. So if we can get rid of all of our maya, then we can attain Bhagwan's home in Akshardham. And this is a quote from the Satsangi Jivan. I said it in the previous slide, but this is from the Satsangi Jivan and specifically the Hari Gita, when Sri Ghanshyam Maharaj was telling his mother, like right here, you can see Sri Hari replied, "Oh mother." So when Bhakti Mata was on her deathbed, she sees that my son is Bhagwan, and Bhagwan gives her what she needs, the gnan that she needs to know in order to attain his dham. So the importance of seva. And one thing that really comes to mind when we think of seva is like, oh, Swaminarayan Sampradaya. But I do want everyone to kind of take a step back and think about it in the sense of like everyone, because when Ramanand Swami established the Uddhav Sampradaya, he established it on the based on the teachings of the Vedas and other holy scriptures of Hinduism. One of the cardinal principles was serving Bhagwan, and when serving Bhagwan within the Sampradaya. So like this was a key like foundation of just our Uddhav Sampradaya as a whole, even before Maharaj came and took the Gadi. So, and even when if you think of it in a broader perspective, seva is a fundamental aspect of Hinduism. And it is also not just Hinduism, but also practiced by multiple religions around the globe. So it is kind of like a humanly duty to help serve other people as well. So it isn't just directly related to religion. And that's the thing that's so nice about seva. Like you can bring a friend to Mandir to like I said when I was talking about it this morning with the community slide, there's so many different examples that you can like bring with your friends. Like it's not necessarily that it's only strictly directed to our Sampradaya. Like if your Mandir is hosting a food drive, you can bring your friends along, or like is doing a blood drive, they can come and donate some blood. Like the more the merrier in that sense, because that just helps our community grow. And also that person, Maharaj is pleased with that person as well. So you're introducing that person to Maharaj, and indirectly you're responsible for their kalyan, which is such a great thing. Like if you think about it. And if we think of Hinduism too, as well, Maharaj's avatars like Ram Bhagwan and Krishna Bhagwan show seva as a way of life. So Lakshmanji, if you remember, is the younger brother of Ram Bhagwan. And when Ram Bhagwan and Sita ji were subjected to their 14-year vanvas, Lakshmanji went with them. And it was to protect his older brother and Bhabi from whatever was happening in the forest. Because if you think about it, the forest, you can't just, like, if we think about it, it's hard to go live in the forest. Like, it's easy said, but hard done, because the wilderness, the conditions are bad. Lakshmani did not sleep for 14 years straight to protect his boy and Bhabi. And even when fighting demons like Ravan, Lakshmanji was at the side of Ram Bhagwan the whole time. And this shows his like servant-like behavior towards his older brother and Bhagwan, because that is avatar of Bhagwan, so that is highly respected. And when you think of another of the avatar, Krishna Bhagwan, Draupadi, she was married to Arjun, and Arjun was the cousin of Krishna Bhagwan. So indirectly, Krishna Bhagwan was Draupadi's brother-in-law. So one day during Uttarayan, Krishna Bhagwan was flying kites, and his finger got cut by the thread of the kite, like the kite string. So there was blood coming out. So Draupadi instantly rips off like a corner of her sari and ties it around Krishna Bhagwan to stop the bleeding. And that day, Krishna Bhagwan said, I will return you like this favor. Don't worry, like this nice act of seva that you've done for me, you'll be rewarded. So remember this situation. Now the real story begins. Okay, so like keep that excerpt in the back of your mind while I say this part. So in the Hastinapur court, Duryodhan, if you remember from the Mahabharata, he was kind of like the antagonist of Mahabharata, was gambling against Yudhishthir, who is the Raja of Indraprastha. And so when you're gambling, when you lose a gamble, you gamble more. So there's a chance for you to win it back. Like if I was gambling $5 and I lost, I would put in another 10. And then I lost that, I would put in like 100. So remember that. So it's like kind of like you keep building and building and building until you like lose it all. That's how gambling worked. So Yudhishthir first, he gambles off the 4 of his younger brothers. So Bhim, Arjun, Nakul, and Sahadev. He gambles off all 4 of them. He gambles off his throne because he is the king of Indraprastha. So the throne now belongs to Duryodhan. And then he gambles off his wife, Draupadi, because Draupadi had 5 husbands. And I know that sounds really weird to think about, but we are in Kali Yuga, which is it's a time period, kind of, it separates a time period. In Dwapar Yuga, it was a normal occurrence. It was dharma. It was according to dharma. So it wasn't like wrong during that time period, but it is now. So as time changes, actions and consequences change as well. So Draupadi, so then Dusasan, who is Duryodhan's younger brother. So Duryodhan is the antagonist. He orders his younger brother to get Draupadi to the court, because now technically Draupadi belongs to Duryodhan because Yudhishthira gambled his wife away. So he drags Draupadi by her hair into the open court. And that, for one, is so insulting, because as a woman, women are so respected in our culture, and for him to do that is beyond disrespectful and very insulting. So then Duryodhan orders for Dusasan to undress Draupadi, which is beyond even speakable. Like, it's terrible. So remember, Krishna Bhagwan, Draupadi tied a little string to Krishna Bhagwan. So then Dusasan starts to pull on Draupadi's sari, and as he is untangling, Krishna Bhagwan comes. No one can see him, only Draupadi can. Out of his hand starts out falling cloth of that same sari, and as the cloth is falling out, as Dusasan is pulling, Krishna Bhagwan is like giving her more like cloth, and then he's pulling and pulling, like kind of like string of a yarn, until he just gives up. Like he just falls out of exhaustion. And in that day, Krishna Bhagwan saved Draupadi's, like, he saved her respect in front of the open court, because there are different kings, there's villagers, everyone is present in that Sabha hall. So he protected her femininity and protected her respect and attain maryada and respected her maryada. So the story, well, I told the story because it shows how one little action you do for Bhagwan give you so much in return. So I want you to put that in mind. If we constantly do seva to Bhagwan every single day, imagine how great and Bhagwan's Rajipo is towards us. And that is the thought that I want to leave you all today with. And so one last thing before we conclude our session, I would like to introduce Dinesh Bhai from UK to just say a few words and kind of give us some advice and to give us a few words on what he thinks we should do as a satsangi. So I will give it off to him.
No, I think that interesting debate for the slides that you guys are going through on Seva. Seva being one for that. As the pillar, I mean, is one defined.
Hey Dinesh bhai, your mic is a bit distorted. We're hearing cutting. Could you try again, please?
Tuning back.
Okay.
Sorry. I had a bit of internet. Can you hear me, guys? Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
So his audio does not seem to be working. Luckily, we have a replacement. Sanjay, you may speak.
Just one moment. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just about, I think. Sorry, just one to everyone. It's a bit last minute this, but yeah, I'll try say something, I guess, for the sake of Kisan, just to make him happy. Everyone knows he's a tough boy, to keep him happy, I guess. Just touching upon the topic, Seva, I mean, I sort of joined halfway through because it's past midnight in London at the moment. One thing I noticed, Raj and I think it was Sahil Bhagat, Raj Bhagat and Sahil Bhagat went on quite a bit about Vajramut. And if you look at the compilation of the Vajramut itself, I think if you ask me personally, I would say that's the biggest seva this Nand Santos actually ever did in this Sampradaya. Because in actual fact, I'm sure all of you people would know about this, but in actual fact, there was actually over 1,000 Vajramuts that have been compiled by the Nand Santos. So all this, see, Vajramut is just it's a question and answer discussion basically between Bhagwan and Santos, or Bhagwan and Hari Bhaktos. That's all it is. So there was over actually 1,000 Vajramuts compiled, and the 4 Nand Santos that were involved in the Vajramut basically sat with Maharaj and just picked the best ones that they wanted to put out to the public. But then if you look at other shastras like Tadrupanan, Swamini Vatu and all the rest of it, all the rest of the Vajramuts are actually there in Swamini Vatos basically. So that's like the biggest seva we've had. And one of the Vajramuts, if I'm not mistaken, Vraj, I think you picked on Gadara Pratham 43, if I'm not mistaken. Vraj spoke about the 4 muktis and how a Hari Bhagat shouldn't wish for those 4 types of muktis. I just want to add a little bit onto that because it's quite strongly linked to seva. Maharaj in Gujarati wording, he uses a word called anuvruti, if I'm not mistaken, on top of my head. The word anuvruti, what does this actually mean? The word anuvruti actually means just staying as per the wish of Maharaj. So if Maharaj wants you to be 1,000,000 miles away from him, you should be happy with that as a Hari Bhagat, because that's what's going to keep him happy. So one shouldn't wish for the 4 type of mukti. You should just wish for whoever keeps Bhagwan happy. That's what should keep, that's what Hari Bhagat should do. We're just gonna a couple of leelas that sort of come to my mind as well, regarding Seva, that Hari Bhaktos, not just Hari Bhaktos, we're so keen. Our sampradayas, if you go through the scriptures of our sampradayas, there's so many different types of Seva leelas, and I'll actually talk to you brief leela, if you allow me, about a goat. So once there was actually a goat, and when the goat passed away, Samran Bhagwan actually gave darshan to the goat. Yeah, so this is an animal. We're not talking about Hari Bhagat here. We're talking about an animal. So the goat's owner saw the darshan of Samran Bhagwan actually coming to the gam and taking the goat away to Akshadam. So the goat's owner asked Samran Bhagwan, Maharaj, why are you here to pick up a goat? Because everyone's used to Bhagwan coming to pick humans up, not animals, obviously, right? So Maharaj said that I'm here for a reason. And so the goat's owner said, what is that reason? What kind of punya has this goat done that you have to come to pick up an animal? And then Samran Bhagwan told him that once Nityanand Swami was really, really ill. So Nityanand Swami, I'm sure it's a big name, is one of the biggest one of the biggest Vedants in our Samaran Sampradaya. So he told him Nityanand Swami got really ill once, and we called for the doctor, and the doctor said that we need goat's milk to cure Nityanand Swami's illness. So at that time, Sarvabhagan said that we had your goat, and because of your milk, Nityanand Swami stayed alive and his illness went away. So because of that, he did seva of my Swami, of my Sant, of my beloved Santos. So I'm gonna take him to Akshadam. So it just shows that, seva, there's a lot of different different types of people, not just different type of species during Samarabhagan's time that did a lot of seva. There was also one instance, I think it's the gum is called Defu gum or Deban gum. It's basically in Kutch area. So once Vyapkanand Swami, Shatanand Swami, and I think it was Brahmanand Swami, 3 santos. So they were doing Vichran. So they were doing like a satsang tour. And that area didn't have a lot of satsang at that time. And then when they basically went there, they didn't get raw food. Because Santos obviously lived within their niyams and limits. So they didn't get raw food, so they couldn't cook anything. So for 2 to 3 days non-stop, they had upwasis. They were doing upwasis. And once they reached this Defugam, they saw a little child coming from a farm. So they asked, so they saw the child and they asked the child, okay, where's your home? And the child was quite sanskari. So he had a lot of, respect for the Santos. So he touched their feet, and the little child took them to their house and said, okay, come, I'll give you raw food and you can cook it, went home, and then obviously 3 Santos asked the kid that, where's your parents? So the kid said that my mom and dad have gone to Gadpur to meet Samaran Bhagan for his darshan. So okay, so you're born into a satsang family? And the kid said, yeah, I'm born into a satsang family. So they went there, and he and then after the santos had food, they cooked the food, they had the food, and the santos were really happy and above like rajipo thyoto nana barak upar, so they were really pleased upon him, and they told the child that wherever you're gonna ask for, I'll give it to you, right? And the child, being so young, there's only one line the child said, whoever is tamne je walu hoy ne te mane apo. So whoever you love the most, you give it to me. That's what the child asks for. Nowadays, if you ask kids, what do you want? They'll come up to you saying, oh, I want a PlayStation, I want an Xbox, I want this and that. That's what kids will say. But that time, that kid just said, whoever is close to you, Swami, you give that to me. So he said that to the 3 santos. So the 3 santos said, ke amne je walama wali vastu che, ito Bhagwan che. So the most dearest thing we hold to our heart is God. So we'll give you God. So they gave him God, and they gave it to him in a way that, there wasn't a millisecond that he couldn't imagine Bhagwan's murti. Yeah, so he attained that much status. And then when the Santos left, they were happy upon him. And then his mom and dad came back from Godpur. And then when his dad and mom came back from Godpur, the little child was actually telling what happened in Godpur to his parents. So his parents thought, okay, how do you know this? You didn't even come Godpur with us, em. So, and then the child said, look, the Santos came, this is what happened, and this is what I asked for, and they gave me this, basically, you know. So the parents were really pleased upon him. And when that child grew older, that child actually was, he became a sant himself in Bhuj Mandir, and he was actually the first mahant of Bhuj Mandir, and his name was Achut Das Swami. You know, it just shows that, you know, Seva is a really big component of our life. And, you know, this, after, if anyone asks me personally, like, what do you think is probably the biggest seva since Maharaj went to Dham in Jet Dasmi 1886? You know, I think if in the current moment of life, in it's just the current sampradaya status, if anyone asks me personally, I would say, you know, our beloved Dharmakul in Vartal, I mean, if you just look at them, what they've been through for over 20 years, they're still what they're still going through. I think there's no bigger seva than that, because, you know, because of them, that's where we are, because the seva they've done towards this sampradaya, you know, Nikhalas bhav chhe ne, e tamne kyahi nahi jowa male, like literally, you know, honestly speaking. And his blessings, you know, Lalji Maharaj and Maharaj's blessings is all because of that. That's why we're all sort of here. Like, otherwise, why would I have to be speaking to American people, or why do American Hari Bhaktas have to be speaking to the people in London? It's just this interaction, his love and his compassion towards all Hari Bhaktas, regardless of what backgrounds we come from, whether it's India, Australia, America, London, UK, Germany, you name it, you know. He's brought everyone together, and it's his seva and dedication towards the sampradaya that's keeping us going until today. So yeah, I think that's it. Sorry, it was just a bit last minute, because I think Dinesh Bhagat has got some mic issues. I think hopefully he can chip in now. Sorry, that's me done. Sorry.
Thank you, Sanjay Bhagat. Yeah, Dinesh Bhagat, you can, if you don't have any mic issues, we can try it one last time. Okay, I think he might be having some mic issues, but just going back to what Sanjay Bhagat just said, thank you so much for that example, right? We always have this in our shibirs, like we always have Sanjay Bhagat come at the end and give us like wise words of advice, especially about like what the topic was. And even us as educators who made these slides, we don't really know like exactly how it's going. And then when we hear these leelas from Sanjay Bhagat towards the end, we're just like, wow, that's amazing, right? I'm hoping that you guys also learned something new from this. And just to stress the point, right, like what he mentioned about Dharmakul and Lalji Maharaj and Marashri, it's like they're ever doing seva for us, so we should never be, you know, taking that for granted, and we should be always indebted to their seva. So we should also be doing the seva back towards them, you know, helping them in whatever cause, etc. I'll give it back to Raj Bhagat now.
Just I think that Dhruv Bhai really summed it up there. Thank you so much, Sanjay Bhai. We really do appreciate you taking the time out of your day, especially because it's so late at night, for coming out and giving us some really nice words. I personally did learn something new. I've never heard the leelas that Sanjay Bhai comes up with. They're just so unique. They're just so much fun listening to. So again, thank you all for joining. We will see you again tomorrow at 11 a.m. EST or 10 a.m. Central, and we will be doing our debate tomorrow morning. We are so excited. It's a biannual thing. We do this all the time, and it's just so much fun, and it's a great way to get interactive. So we hope to see you guys there, and we can't wait to do our debate. And tomorrow night is Jeopardy night, so stay tuned for that as well. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening, and we will see